take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Welcome to Life in Red.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 20 Life in Red podcast. I am joined, my guest today, Jen Wozny. Welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So you are the founder of Put the Light Here.
Yes.
And you are an energy healer.
I am.
So I think first question is, what does that mean? What is an energy healer? Because I think not a lot of us understand that.
So the basic definition of energy healing is the use of energy to, and this will sound really basic at the moment, this will build up after I say this. So the use of energy to facilitate healing. Energy is anything that's non-physical. It's emotions such as love, it's thoughts, it's, things that come out of a defibrillator is energy to facilitate healing. And so, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
following along.
That's the basic definition. We can facilitate energy healing in a number of different ways, such as I just mentioned, using a defibrillator to start a heart. That is a form of energy healing. The way that I and other holistic practitioners do it is generally using the energy of our heart to send that energy into someone's physical body. So I am the defibrillator, not that restart someone's heart, but sending the energy out of my heart, out of my love, out of my energy field into someone else to help facilitate their healing is that's something that we would call like Reiki. The practice of Reiki.
I've heard of that.
Right? So laying hands on someone would be a form of energy healing where we're channeling energy out of our heart and out of, source or God or whatever we want to call it, channeling it through our body, out of our hands, and into the physical body of our client is a form of energy healing. I do it a little differently than that at a higher level, but that's the basic. The basic.
Okay. I know when we first started chatting and stuff, you mentioned that this was not something maybe you always known you could do this or had some sort of ability or I don't want to misidentify what it is, but you had a totally kind of different career path, different life before you started this. That's right?
I did.
Okay, so you were government?
I was. I did a master's degree in national security.
So that's a dramatic shift. What kind of made you go from, full-time job, I'm sure no pun intended, but security.
Right.
In your life, and then all of a sudden change to this whole new area. What was that like, and how did you kind of go through that decision process?
It was more of a soul level decision to change my life, take it to a higher level. It wasn't anything conscious that I did. I had no idea that it was happening. It just kind of happened. That was the path I was on, led me out of the government into healing. But it was a gradual process at first. So I think a lot of us are doing this right now. We start tinkering with spiritual subjects or crystals or meditation or yoga. That's kind of the gateway into the more fulsome, deeper level of spirituality and healing. And so over the years I had done all those things, crystal healing and yoga, meditation, while I was working for the government. And then some part of me inside really just wanted to be healed. And so I would literally take vacation days off of work, in my national security job, to stay at home and do emotional processing, to process my emotional baggage on my vacation day, because it was so important for me to be whole and healed inside of me. And eventually that need and desire just took over my life. And that led me out of the government to be here with you.
Mm-hmm. So how long have you been working as a healer? A couple of years, couple of months?
I've probably 4 or 5 years that
Okay.
I've really been offering it. I had no idea this was inside of me. So I know that I've been doing it for many, many lifetimes before this one. But the last several years is when I really got into it intensely.
Okay. So it's interesting you say that because, coming from like a different perspective of not really knowing too much about this. So you say meditation and yoga, which is pretty acceptable, I guess what you could say mainstream. People do it and they feel benefits, and a lot of people swear by it. But then you also talk about things like crystal healing, which people are a lot more skeptical on. So, I mean, how does it all kind of come together? Whereas it gets like yoga and meditation get accepted as kind of a quote unquote normal practice, perhaps, and crystal healing or others might be a little more like, again, quote unquote, out there thinking. Like, how does that all kind of come together and get tied together?
I think if you come to the fundamental idea that all matter is energy, everything around us is energy, even which we perceive as being solid. The physicists will tell us that if you look really closely at it, at this solid table in front of us, it's actually just composed of molecules of energy vibrating in a particular lattice that we perceive to be as solid. So that's where, when I say I'm an energy healer or I use energy to facilitate healing, that's where crystals come into play for the sake of healing, because a crystal or a stone or a rock has its own vibrational frequency. And some stones or rocks vibrate with the frequency that we perceive as love or that which would be healing. And so we're really just using energy deliberately for the sake of making ourselves feel better. Meditation and yoga are fundamentally about calming us, calming our mind, rewiring our brain to be less scattered, because we're so scattered these days with everything around us and going on in our world, to focus our mind and to enable us fundamentally to bring our bodies to a state of such relaxation that we can turn inward to find out what's inside of ourselves, which is enormous. We are very big, very powerful, very beautiful beings when we look inside. And so all of these tools are really just helping us get to the same destination of, look how beautiful you are inside of yourself.
You talked about, you take vacation days to sort out emotional baggage. Was this kind of like a self-realization moment? Like, you just understood that there was things you needed to work out on your own? Was it through another method, like maybe like, someone going to therapy and someone pointing it out to you? Like, was there a point where you're like, you know what, I have some stuff I need to work out, and this is how I'm going to do it? Like, I'm just kind of trying to figure out how, you went from working in the government then to maybe exploring little things. You said it was gradual, and then like stumbling into the energy part of it and understanding that actually helps with the emotional baggage and all that stuff. I'm just trying to understand.
So my trajectory, as I call it, was really interesting. I didn't consciously know that there was anything wrong with me.
Okay.
I didn't have a mental health issue that we would label, that I decided needed to be worked on. It was actually very different. I just craved. It was more of a craving for healing. And I would take time to look inside of me to notice what needed to be healed, what baggage was there, what emotions had built up over my lifetime that I needed to, oh my goodness, get out of me and heal. So it was a craving. I couldn't get enough of the feeling of being lighter after every time I did this processing or the meditation or whatever it might be that I was doing at the time. I couldn't get enough of it. And so I was just so strongly attracted to the feeling of being healed from yet another piece of baggage. And we have so many because we're human, and that's just what happens. Generally speaking, not everyone, but. And so the interesting part, though, is that I started with very basic physical level techniques to help me. And so, I've naturally been a vegetarian for a long time, but then I became a vegan, and then it was more about eating plants rather than, processed foods. So nutrition became very important. And then, I don't know, I think I got into crystals, like really basic ones. And then I was into aromatherapy, so essential oils and how they heal, they can help heal us. And then I did homeopathic remedies, which is something that you ingest. It's vibrational medicine because everything is energy, right? And then from there, I started doing the more sort of further out things, the energy-based things like Reiki. So I would get a Reiki treatment from someone because the deeper that I went into my own soul, the stronger the remedy needed to be to heal that level of myself.
Okay. Let's explain Reiki too, just for people. What exactly is it? Where does it come from? A little bit of the origins of it.
So Reiki, which is spelled Reiki, generally is a thousands of years old practice of energy healing, using energy that comes out of the human body to facilitate healing. It was forgotten for many years, and in the 1900s there was a man in Japan who basically went in search of this lost healing modality. He rediscovered it, and he was in Japan, so he named it a Japanese word, Reiki, and he founded this particular lineage of energy healing, which generally uses energy channeled through the human body, through the Reiki healer, into the patient using the hands. So that's laying the hands, or that's hands-on healing.
Okay. I mean, just to ask the question, because I'm sure people are wondering, I'm sure you run into skeptics, or maybe some pushback on some of your beliefs and that it's working. So my first question is, like, how do you deal with that? Or, why do you believe so strongly that this works and works for other people? Just to kind of answer that question and get it out of the way.
Sure. Well, the one thing that I say to everyone is do what feels right for you. We're all very different. We all come from the same source, ultimately. We are living as humans, but we're all very different in this moment. And so do whatever feels right for you. Energy healing may never be right for you, or maybe never be right for someone, and that's totally fine. I'm just here to say it is an option, and it can work in minutes, which I think is very empowering to know, because we can be free of a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of trauma, a lot of other issues very quickly if we have that level of person working on our behalf. I don't generally encounter skeptics. I try not to attract skeptics.
Yeah.
I'm also not here to convince anyone of anything. I just let people know what I offer, and if they'd like to try it, they're welcome to. If not, that's cool.
Yeah.
The yoga that I'm a teacher of is called Kundalini yoga. It's a little more wacky if you've ever seen it. It works. It's so efficient, though. That's why it looks very strange. But the master of that lineage of yoga always said, try it. If you like it, come back. If you don't like it, don't. So I would say, try it. If you like it, come back. If you don't, then don't. And that's totally cool. I offer free consultations for people. I think it's very important to answer people's questions before they commit financially. And also, healing is a very personal process. It's not something to be taken lightly, I think, especially energy healing, because we're literally manipulating someone's soul. Or we have the potential to do that. That's a very serious thing. And there are people who do it and don't take it seriously, and they can cause harm.
Okay.
So.
We were talking about off mic, as I was learning a little bit more, so I could sound like I know what I'm talking about. There's definitely different areas that we can help. So my first thing was like, is it mental or physical? And you said both, but then there's also other areas that potentially it could help. So what are some of those areas, and is it all the same type of method? Like if you're going to try to heal something that's physical, say, you know, my neck really bothers me, versus a mental issue, is it the same kind of technique? Are there different things that you do, different methods? Like what's kind of like some of the process?
So for me, the way that I do it is the same method for any issue.
Okay.
Because what I'm doing is I'm connecting with the soul of the client, whoever that might be. So I speak with the client, they tell me what the issue is. It's physical, it's mental, it's something from another lifetime, or it's, you know, there's, like we were saying before we hit record, my soul is tired. You know, people are saying that right now. So I speak with the client, find out what's going on, and then I connect with the energy of their soul. So it's like a cell phone connecting to their cell phone, or a cell phone connecting to their switchboard, like the whole network. And it's the energy of their soul that tells me, where did the neck pain come from? And sometimes it's from this lifetime. It was, you know, you had a bad soccer accident when you were 4. And so, like I said, everything is just energy. All matter is energy. So my job is to manipulate the energy in the client for the sake of healing, or facilitating healing to the extent that they want. But maybe the neck pain came from a past life where something really bad happened. When I connect with the soul, it's the same mass of energy, whether it's this lifetime or millions of years ago. So the issue is the same. I have an example, if you don't mind. So this is a little bit far out, but just all matter is energy, right? And I have the client's permission to share their story. So I had a client who had severe digestive issues for more than 30 years. They had constant nausea. They could barely eat. You know, food just doesn't fit well with their stomach because of what had been going on for 30 years. And so, like, they couldn't do road trips kind of thing, right? Because their stomach and digestive system just was problematic. And so I tuned in and I heard pyloric valve, and I don't even know what a pyloric valve is, but I know now because we Googled it, that it's something in the stomach. And so I tuned in, I heard pyloric valve, heard in my inner hearing. And when I looked at, you know, in my inner sight, their pyloric valve, it was connected to many lifetimes worth of energy where they had to fight for survival. And the energy of fighting for survival was playing itself out in their stomach as if it was acid, eating away at the lining of the stomach, energetically. And so we cleared away that energy of fighting for survival from many lifetimes. And before the session ended, they said, "Oh my goodness, Jen, I'm not nauseous anymore. And I feel like my eyes are sparkling again." And they're still feeling not nauseous anymore. That particular healing was permanent.
Mentioned a couple things in there just to unpack a little bit. So one, you've mentioned several times from another lifetime.
Yes.
So what does that look like? Is that a belief or not a belief? I don't know the correct term, but is that like reincarnation? Is that the soul is energy and it transfers? Can you explain that a little bit?
Take what feels right, and discard the rest. But a lot of the world's religions even talk about indirectly reincarnation, and the fact that even Catholic Church talks about reincarnation, even though it's kind of hidden. Like, you have to kind of look for it and say, "Oh my goodness, they talk about reincarnation. Therefore, perhaps they believe that the soul is eternal or whatnot." If it feels right to believe in reincarnation, or the fact that your soul is older than your physical body, then we do look at the soul as a ball of energy or a bundle of energy that comes into a body when it feels like it has lessons to learn or experiences that it wants to have. And at the end of that lifetime, it leaves the body, goes back up into the world of energy. And then at some point in the future, the soul decides, I'd like to have some experiences again, maybe learn some different lessons, come back into a body and have another life.
Mm-hmm.
Contrast that with the idea that we only live once and then we die and then we're erased from consciousness and the multiverse, and we never have, that's it. We're here for 50 years and then we're erased. So does that answer the question?
Yeah,
kind of?
absolutely. Just
okay.
and just to follow up, would you say this is more, and I could be totally wrong, but like, would you classify yourself as like, is it a religious belief? Is it just like energy and spirits and it's not classified as religion? Like, what's kind of like if there is any belief system behind it, that you subscribe to, or is it just kind of like a whole being, as you smile and shake your head at me?
That's a great question, though, because a lot of people might think that it is a religion, or it. What is it? What is it that we're even talking about? So I don't have a religion. I don't have a belief system. I know what I know in this moment, and I know that there's so much I have no concept of. And I simply know my own experience with reality, which is very weird, very interesting, and changes in every moment.
Yeah.
And I'm totally open to being wrong. I don't really care. But I know what I've experienced. I know the results that I've gotten for myself with energy healing, or the use of energy, right? And I also know what I've experienced with clients. So it just is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing I wanted to ask, so you mentioned hit the mic, your inner hearing, and you said your inner, I think it was inner seeing or inner vision.
Yes.
What does that kind of mean?
So in the psychic realm, which is really just cultivating different senses from the 5 main human senses, there are 4 ways of perceiving the non-physical reality. One is clairvoyance or clear seeing, and I'll explain that in a minute. The other is clairaudience or clear hearing. The third one is clairsentience or clear feeling, and the fourth one is claircognizance or clear knowing. So clairvoyance is really just seeing without the physical eyes, and it's really just if you were to close your eyes and picture what you ate for breakfast, could you see it? Can you see it? Whatever you ate for breakfast.
I can.
Right? But it's not in front of you, so how are you seeing it? Right? So when we perceive, generally, some people do see with their physical eyes. They can see energies and energy fields and things like that, which I think would be really cool, but I don't have that. But generally, clear seeing or clairvoyance is just seeing somewhere in your mind in the same way that you would see the memory of your breakfast. Clear hearing is the same thing. Can you hear the sound of your cat meowing, or the person you spoke to last? Can you hear their voice? Well, probably, yes, but you're not using your physical ears, but there's some sound in there, right? So that's clear hearing. So when I say I can hear it in my inner ear, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the other thing, because I've met people, and one is a good friend that says that they can see mood.
Oh, cool.
So, for instance, like it was really, I don't want to say weird, but it just eerie for me, because I would walk in and as everybody knows who listens to the podcast, is I have mental illness issues, and she would instantly know as soon as I walked into the room. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, even if I was like smiling, I'd be like, as I point and narrow my eyes, I'm like, "What do you mean?" Is that kind of like a form of all this, or is that something separate? Like when people could see a mood or see, I think is it an empath? Is it kind of like all in the general field of this energy?
It depends on the way in which they're perceiving your mood.
Okay.
So if they're seeing with like psychic sight, like maybe seeing colors around you that represent sadness or whatever it might be, then that would be a psychic sense that they've cultivated or has been opened in them. However, there's also a deeper level of perception when we're really willing to look at a person. Because, like I say, all matter is energy and emotions are just energy. And let's say anger. Let's just take anger. It's a great frequency. Anger vibrates at a certain frequency of energy. I don't know the frequency. I'm not into that. But it has a certain frequency of energy. And when that frequency of energy is impacting the cells in your physical body, it will change the way that the cells are structured. Does that make sense so far? So if you have a lot of anger in you, the cells in your face will be patterned in such a way that someone who's looking really closely will be able to see that there's anger in your face, even if you're smiling. Does that make sense? So perhaps they were just looking at you really closely to see there's something going on behind that smile, because energy is patterning your face, which is another reason why, especially after doing Kundalini yoga, because I said it's really effective at cleaning out our emotional fields and our minds and our meridians in our body. After doing a lot of Kundalini yoga, people look younger. Why? It's not because you're burning calories, because Kundalini yoga doesn't actually burn a lot of calories. It's because you're clearing the energy out of your cells. And so the cells can literally like breathe again and bounce back to, I don't know, what cells look like when they're healthy, because we've released through Kundalini yoga or any other technique similar to that, we've released all of that negative energy that was patterning the cell to make it look old and aged or whatever it might be.
It's kind of interesting now that you say that. If you look at some of the oldest people in the record books, I guess you could say, they all kind of come from parts of the world that, you know, maybe that kind of believe or have more traditional Eastern medicines or philosophies, such as energy healing, right? Like Japan or Southeast Asia, China, like they all kind of have these spiritual practices, and they all seem to live longer lives regardless of economic impact, which is very anti what us Western civilization kind of believes.
Right.
So that's kind of, I mean, I don't know if they practice this or practice that, but it's just interesting the correlation between the two, as you say that. I'm kind of like, interesting.
They know something we don't know.
Yeah, maybe, right? And I assume like that's where most of this kind of comes from, right? Or was it? I don't assume Americans probably picked this up.
A lot of the indigenous cultures, though, well, a lot. So yes, a lot of it came from Asia and India. A lot of this, many thousands of years ago, came out of India and spread. However, the indigenous population of North America, so not the Caucasians who came in and set up the structures that we now have called education and medicine, but the indigenous populations are very in touch with the earth, the rhythms of the earth, which is energy, the rhythms of the human body, eating with the seasons, which is health and nutrition, and also shamanism, which is energy healing, a form of energy healing. Okay. So it's kind of us who, it's news to us, but it's thousands of years old. Yeah.
So, I mean, and this is just coming from me, obviously you believe, but if it's been carried on this long, there has to be something to it. Whether people choose to believe it or not. I do want to ask, though, do you think maybe, is it a placebo effect too? Or, I mean, obviously you believe more in that, but I'm just trying to unpack it a little bit for people trying to understand it and maybe thinking to themselves, Is it that the belief that you're helping them get better maybe is helping them get better? Is that a form of energy? I don't know.
It is, actually.
Okay, there you go. Just kind of had that thought as I was saying it.
So that's a really great question. Is it just a placebo effect? Or to what extent is some of the results gained from energy-based healing practices placebo? There is power in placebo because as I want to say Bruce Lipton, who's a medical doctor and has a book, Biology of Belief, but I think it's also Greg Braden, who talk about this, and also quantum physicists. Our thoughts program our cells. And so if I have this sugar pill, right, the classic placebo sugar pill, that I believe is going to cure me of my ailment, my thoughts are saying I'm cured. Therefore, through quantum physics, my cells are responding to that thought. And therefore, I end up being cured. So was it a placebo or was it quantum physics and we're labeling it placebo?
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So our belief does absolutely, because thoughts are energy, right? And that's been shown in studies on the power of prayer. So sending prayers to someone who's in a hospital bed can actually help to facilitate their healing. And those studies have been done. And they have actually facilitated healing because what is prayer except positive energy? So that's literally distant energy healing called prayer. What was I saying? Where was I? Anyway, belief, the belief that we're healing our client, the belief that it's really just helping the client heal themselves, right? The belief that our client will be healed is a powerful energy field to generate for that person. Is that placebo, or are we just calling it placebo because we didn't have an understanding of this level of physics prior? There's a quantum physicist called Nassim Haramein, and one of his quotes is, "The realm of that which we call spiritual is really just the physics that we don't yet understand."
I love that.
Right?
Yeah. That's good.
It's just energy, and we are capable of manipulating and changing energy.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people who might be skeptical of the practice is that there's no science behind it. But as you say this, like that kind of is like, wait a second, doesn't necessarily mean there's no science. It's just that we don't quite understand it or how it all works.
Have you ever Googled the science behind energy healing?
I never have.
If you haven't, then you probably would never have discovered it. But there's tomes of material going back thousands of years, including scientific studies that have been done in the last 50 or so years by our Western culture to say that this is real. It doesn't enter into the mainstream society, unfortunately, because for certain reasons, because it would empower people to heal themselves for a very cheap manner, right?
Yeah.
If you could heal yourself, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I love it.
but a really cool thing is some of the world's biggest governments have psychic spies.
I've looked into it a little bit because there's people who do claim that. I mean, even Alex Jones, as someone who, whatever he believes in, does say that the government is hiding these types of things. I know there's been CIA documents and stuff where they've tried to train people on this.
Right.
There's actually some documentaries on Netflix that are quite fascinating with some of all this stuff, and people who also share that.
Yeah, and who have written books about their experience being a psychic spy.
Yeah.
So that's a form of energy. It's not really healing because they're not using their gift for the sake of healing, but they're tapping into what I do when I connect with someone's soul. They're just tapping into, a file cabinet in Russia to read the top secret reports. So it's the same thing. So it's this subject, if you actually put all the material together, the quantum physics plus the psychic spying, if you want to look into that, things like that, there's so much evidence out there to say that there is something to it.
Absolutely. I guess, and because it made me think of the last episode of the podcast. We were talking about the power of positivity. Same type of thing. It definitely positive, as you're saying, positive energy through prayer. It's the same type of thing. When people think positively or are positive about maybe an outcome, maybe they were diagnosed with cancer and they're being positive, that I think there are studies that show that if you are in a good frame of mind and being positive, that it is beneficial to your your prognosis and getting better. So just to get some confirmations as I'm thinking and listening to you speak, that positivity is a form of energy healing.
What do you think?
That? I'm beginning to believe yes, but...
So energy healing is the use of energy to facilitate healing.
Yeah.
So positive thought is physical matter or energy?
Well, that's energy.
Right. And positive thought having a positive impact on your body is healing?
Yes.
So is it energy healing?
Yeah. Look at you spin it back on me like that. So there you have it. That's all kind of...
So you're a healer.
I'm connecting all the pieces as you're talking. I knew nothing before, but now I'm bringing them all together. It's very interesting.
It's interesting because people think of... I like bringing things into the mainstream. I like explaining things very simply so that everyone can understand it. People think of energy healing and they think it has to be some massive concept, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to go to a shaman or a Reiki master or whatever it might be. But positive thought is energy healing. It is energy being used for the sake of healing. I was speaking with someone a little while ago, and they had severe depression, and they were going to the hospital to get this new treatment called transcranial magnetic stimulation. And according to the Mayo Clinic in the United States, transcranial magnetic stimulation has a 70% success rate for treating depression, but the doctors don't understand how it works. So this is what transcranial magnetic stimulation is. You go to the hospital has this device that they put on your head somewhere, and they turn on a machine, and the machine sends energy into the device and then into your brain. And then you feel better after, I think you have to get like 100 treatments or something like that. Or 30 or a really large number of treatments in a row. So you go to the hospital, think about what this is. Go to the hospital, they have a device, they put it on your head, they turn the machine on, and it sends energy into your brain and helps alleviate depression. So I said to this person who was at the end of their treatment protocol for transcranial magnetic stimulation at the hospital, I said, so you've been getting energy healing, haven't you? They said, oh my goodness, I didn't realize it. The use of energy to facilitate healing. 70% success rate using this machine. Doctors don't understand how it works.
Now, as I'm putting pieces together in my head, as you're helping me build the Lego set here, as we're building the pieces, something like Dr. Ho, the electrical impulses.
I don't know what that is.
No, so it's the TV ads are forever, and he's not advertising, so no one do that. But you put the little electrical impulses on your shoulder or something, and you turn it on, and it's supposed to send the waves through you, and it's supposed to alleviate your pain.
Yes, I have one. It's one name is a TENS machine.
Yeah, I think you just branded it.
Transdermal electrical. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Again, now as I'm trying to, do we consider the electrical things as energy healing? And before you turn it back on me, I'm going to say yes.
I was waiting to do that.
I would say yes, that it is, because you're using. I mean, it's the same thing. Vibrations, right?
Right.
And you're
to facilitate healing, energy healing.
You can't see me right now, but I am flabbergasted. That
so
it's
let's say you have a friend who's very upset, and we really want to comfort them. What's one thing we do? We embrace them in this hug that's filled with love, and it literally is filled with love, because we're just like sending compassion out of our heart into our friend as we embrace them. What's that?
Yeah, it's energy healing.
Is it not?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're so powerful. And we don't necessarily realize it. But when we have the framework for that which we do naturally, we can understand how amazing we are, and we can even build on that to cultivate it further. Because every human has these skills, because almost every human probably has wrapped someone in a loving hug, right? And facilitated energy healing, or thought positive thoughts, even sent positive thoughts to someone deliberately to help them. That's powerful.
And I'm wondering that, you know, when you think of, say, for instance, like a psychopathic serial killer who kind of was, it would almost seem like they were, like, I mean, for lack of a better term, lacking or like devoid of positive energy or any love, compassion, all that things that go into them. And it has a psychological effect on them, right? Like they grow up without understanding it. So I'm wondering now, it's like, in some way, whether it's through a professional healer or just through ourselves, like that it actually does have a pretty profound impact on our being. This energy, I don't want to say energy thing, but energy has a profound impact on our well-being, whether we know it or not. And your upbringing and everything that goes into it. That's me just talking out loud. I don't even know if it's a question, but I'm just like, it's just like kind of like a light bulb moment for me.
So think about, that's a wonderful observation. And remember that all matter is energy. And all matter vibrates with a unique frequency. So we're surrounded by all these different forms of matter, by a cell phone, by a table, things like that. Those are all impacting our own bundle of energy that we call ourself, our human body, and we have an energy field. We emit energy. That's just a fact. Can't see it unless you have that psychic sight, which would be really cool to have, like I say, but I don't have it. So it's interesting. We have put Wi-Fi into elementary schools just to make it more convenient for these little kids to have, I don't know, laptops or whatever in schools these days. But there are countries that are now pulling the Wi-Fi out of the classrooms and banning it from schools and rewiring their internet connection, because what's Wi-Fi except energy? Acting on the energy of a child's brain and heart, and Wi-Fi is not a healing vibration. And so, as you said, the energy that we grow up in impacts us, patterns us at the cellular level.
I'm just, you know? I don't want to say it's miracle, but like, do you have any, I know you shared one, but like really great success stories of any clients that you are able to share, any things that, you know, that really, really worked for somebody, that you're able to share? Or things that you're like particularly like, this person came in and like we solved it, and you're like, yeah, we did it, type thing, type moment, type client, patient. I
don't have their permission to share the story.
Okay.
So I can share it in a very general manner.
Yeah.
And I would never include identifiers anyway, even if I had their
course.
permission.
100%.
But I did have someone, when I go to, I do all of my work over the phone, because I don't need, the way that I work with energy, I don't need to be physically present with a client in order to help them, because I'm tapping into their soul, really. But I also do sometimes work out of a little metaphysical store in Manotick called Green Spirit. And when I'm at Green Spirit, I offer appointments for 15 minutes, up to an hour, but I start at 15 minutes if someone only wants like a 15-minute appointment. And so I had someone come in for a 15-minute appointment. They had walked into the store, didn't even really know who I was, but they were just like, you know, looking for healing. 15-minute appointment. They had like severe grief, lifetime's worth of grief. And by the end of the 15 minutes, the grief was gone, because we went all the way back in their soul to where it first started, where they first picked up the energy of grief and removed it. And so the line of energy from that particular lifetime to this lifetime, all that grief just got cleared in a moment. So at the end of 15 minutes, they were like, wow.
I don't know how much you can share about it. How do you go about tapping into the soul?
So I've been trained really well.
Okay.
I did what I call the road trip when I left the government, and spirit and my intuition said, you need to just sell everything, buy a car and drive. And I did, and it ended up being a 4-year-long road trip. And I was almost in complete isolation. I was being trained by the spirit realms. And my motto for that whole trip was, hard training makes for easy combat. And so I got trained really, really well, very intensely. I begged to be in the combat mode, whatever that looked like. But so I just tap into, I'm able to, I'll say it's a skill that I've cultivated.
Okay.
To be able to do what I do and how rapidly I do it. Others can do it as well. But really it's just turning my awareness to a different level of reality, which is very simple. I don't need anything to help me get there. I just need the person's permission to see the rest of them, and I'll be shown it because I've cultivated that skill. But it's as simple as, and you can do it right now if you just, and everyone listening, if you'd like to, you're welcome to just close your eyes and connect with your own soul. Say, my soul, please show me what I look like. And you might see something, or you might hear something, or feel it, or know it. But everyone has that ability.
Is it, and everyone kind of has a unique experience with it? Because it would be depending on what you have.
Exactly.
Okay.
Everyone experiences it differently. Everyone's form of communication is different. There's someone I know, she gets her messages, or at least she did. It was really cute. She's a foodie. And she gets her messages in vegetables. It's cute. It's very fun. Not all of them, but some of them, but other people only see blobs of energy moving, and they have to learn how to interpret the blobs of energy. So it's very unique, which is a wonderful thing, I think.
One thing when we were talking about on air, or off air, sorry, that, and I mentioned to you that I talk about quite a lot on here, and I think it's almost a theme around a lot of my episodes, is kind of the chaos of the world. Why the way we are now, and it seems different, and it seems that there's a lot of angst, and there's a lot of conflict, and there's a lot of people coming to the forefront with what their thoughts are and their belief, and why that's all happening and why it's all kind of happening now. And it was interesting when we were speaking that you said that's one of the things you like to bring to people's attention, because you kind of have some knowledge on why this might be happening to all of us, or is happening. So, I mean, the simple question is, like, what's going on with the world today in some aspects?
Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Because I do, as we talked about offline, teach a course on it. Because it's so important I feel it's so important for everyone to know what's going on and why, where we're headed, and how we can, in a healthy manner, get from here to there.
So let's make sure we don't give the whole course away, of course.
Yes, thank you. So just a quick plug for the course. It's called Lightworker Level 1. It's on my website, putthelight.here.com, on the events page, Lightworker Level 1. You do not need to be a Lightworker or know what that is in order to join. It's all about the curriculum, and I had to pick a label for it, so I called it Lightworker. But basically, the good news about what's happening to the world and the chaos and the emotion that we're seeing is we knew it was coming.
And by we, who's we?
The ancient cultures who are in tune with the earth, who are in tune with the astrology, the movement of the planets, connected to the rhythms of life and the cycles of life, have known throughout time that at this point of Earth's history, things would begin to fall apart. And things are falling apart for the sake of making them even better. So it's fundamentally positive. It's just going to take a lot of work to get from here to there. And what that's doing also to us, because we're all just energy, right, is it's bringing stuff to the surface that we have not dealt with before. And it's those things are coming to the surface to say, would you please now heal me so that I can leave and you can feel better?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if what you speak of, and you don't have to answer because I'm sure it's in your course, but things that, especially that are up on social media now, are all the issues we're seeing coming from traditionally oppressed people, indigenous, like people of color, LGBTQ, that, as you say that, like, yeah, there's a lot of people saying, like, these are the issues and we've never been healed. And I just talked about this on my last podcast, and she said that, talking about I don't want to mess it, intergenerational trauma.
Yep.
And stuff like that. And
right.
Again, now I'm putting all these pieces together and the light bulb moments are kind of happening. So it's very interesting. But it's all coming to the forefront now, and people are saying it's not okay anymore, and they're really stepping up. And, you know, some people are just learning about it. Some people are having to face things that may have happened or things they may have done. The Me Too movement, same type of thing. Like, all these wrongs that have been kind of committed or have happened leading up until this point really seem to all be coming up now.
Yes.
All at once.
Yep.
And a lot of people have trouble dealing with that because it's a lot to process, and it's a lot to understand. And for so long, none of us had to understand it. And you know, it's so interesting that you bring it up, and that you speak of it as energy. And then you can kind of see it, and I'm trying to, for the listener, see it in this actual context, this thing that you can actually see happening.
So everything that this part of the conversation might go a little further out than the earlier part, but yeah. Everything is energy. Intergenerational trauma that was left unhealed is energy. And it's a you can see it as this cloud of black energy, intergenerational trauma in the indigenous culture. That's a very specific thing that we're talking about. But there's trauma everywhere. The planet Earth itself has undergone trauma from what we're doing to her and how we're treating her, right? So all of that energy, if it's left unhealed, just kind of sinks into the planet to be stored there. As it's now coming up to the surface, if no one had done anything about it, and all of this thousands of years of trauma and wounding came to the surface and hit the energy field and the emotional field of all of the humans who are here, we would be so overwhelmed with the amount of stuff we've buried over time, and our ancestors have buried over time, right, collectively, that there would be no point in trying to move the earth forward. We'd all just be overwhelmed with our baggage, and our ancestors' baggage. So one of the things that I was doing on my road trip, and this is how I got trained, or part of how I got trained, was because it's all just energy, and there's this deep pocket inside of the earth of trauma energy. We, as energy healers, are able to remove the pocket of traumatic energy from the planet and heal it, so that what's left to hit the humans, to hit the people, is not as overwhelming, would not crush them. Do we all need to face it? Yes, because there's lessons and learnings in everything. We need to learn why we committed these atrocities, or why we allowed them to be committed, why we buried them, and you know, there's evolution involved, right? Post-traumatic growth comes out of looking at what has come before us and healing it and evolving because of it. But part of what I do on a regular basis is clear the bulk of the energy, because it's just energy, to help this process be as smooth as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of my far out section.
That's not far out.
It's fascinating, though.
It is. And that, a lot of people are just, they don't know what to do with any of this. It's totally new. We live in an age where we're so connected to each other, yet so removed from each other with the internet and social media. We're losing some of those, and now I can understand it as energy, but things like social bonds, healthy relationships, love and compassion for other people, because even like simple conversations, like that is all being lost because now we're on our phone.
Right.
And I could be wrong, but like through social media, like does energy like get through social media and through the internet? Does it get limited? How does like that kind of work?
So is your question, can the energy of the person creating a social media post transfer to the person who reads the social media post?
I guess that's part of it, yeah.
So the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, especially if someone knows how to use energy.
Mm-hmm.
So
not really subconsciously. Like if I'm just making a post and I'm not really thinking about it, it might work, but maybe not to the extent as, say, if you were directly using a post for the specific purpose.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's great. So would it, if let's say you're angry, because that's just an easy frequency, like I said. So let's say you're angry, right? And you write a post and your energy is angry. Doesn't matter the words you use, but the energy with which you generated that post is anger. Yes, people will feel the anger when they encounter that post. However, if you have been trained in how to manipulate energy and you deliberately want to amplify or channel that anger into the post to have a negative effect on people, then yes, you can make that energy amplified. And so that's why we have to be very careful I hope we would be very careful what we look at, what we engage with. Don't even, just to scroll past it, even if we haven't really looked at it or read it, we're still engaging with that energy from the angry post. And that can have a detrimental effect on us. There's a part of what I do is shamanic. And so there's a book by a man named Michael Harner, who basically traveled the world and met with the world's indigenous cultures and their shamans and really learned what shamanism is at its core. Like, what are the basic fundamental steps that are included in every shamanic culture, and help to elevate or re-elevate shamanism on a global scale, because it was basically wiped out over the last few hundred years by the church. He has a book called Cave and Cosmos. He wrote it near the end of his life, and it's just the highlight of everything that he's encountered and learned. In his book, it was really interesting to hear him talk about how a shaman, because I know this and I do this, but he even, to see someone admit it and talk about the dark side of using energy. He would talk about how a shaman is so aware of their thoughts and the power of the energy behind their thoughts that they would never consciously send a negative thought, opinion, or judgment to another human being, because to do so would be a psychic attack.
So it kind of, does it feed off each other? Does energy feed off itself? Like if I put out bad energy and you put out bad energy, like, does it like snowball? Like, does it get that effect? Like if it's everyone's really negative, like, and maybe that's kind of what's going on. Like a lot of people are negative about a lot of things. Does that amplify the negative energy in you if other people are being negative type thing?
That's a great and very insightful question. I teach about this in level 1 especially.
Okay.
I'll answer the question though, but I want to say I teach about this in level 1 because part of how we get through this shift, whatever's happening to the planet, right? Part of how we get through it is to heal ourselves, because we are beings of energy. There is so much negative energy floating around, and energy is magnetic. And so if I have a molecule of anger in my anywhere in my body or my energy field, and I pass through a cloud of angry energy, there is the potential that I magnetically, my anger, my little molecule of anger, joins with the cloud of angry energy, and I feel it, and it's intensified in me. So yes, it can snowball. It can, if there's enough of a cloud of energy, or like a big enough, an intense enough package of energy or ball of energy, it can form its own consciousness. It can take on a life of its own. Part of what I do is energetic security, because this is such a big subject, is negative energy that's around us, affecting us, and we don't know it. So sometimes we get angry for no reason, and we're just in a bad mood, and we're swearing, or we're, slamming stuff, and it has nothing to do with ourselves. It's the energy around us, or the energy that we passed through, that's influencing our thoughts and our behaviors. And that's really powerful to know, because some of the things we feel, say, or do are not generated by us. They're actually caused by something external, and we don't need to have that happen to us. So energetic security is how I brought my master's degree in national security into my current life. I actually do security more now than I ever have in my government career.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
Interesting. Want to touch on this, the level 1. So what are the types of things that, if people want to look into it, that you go about and you discuss and you teach and you go over?
So I think level 1 has, 12 modules to it. I actually started my teaching career teaching Homeland Security. So everything that I do is really, I like to be very clear and mainstream, even if I'm talking about a spiritual subject. But level 1 talks about generally what's happening to the world, why is this happening, how we actually knew it was coming, right? What's the trajectory? Where are we going? What does this mean for Earth and humanity as a whole? And then how to get through it safely. So what this earth-wide change is doing to our emotions, to our physical body. How do we address that? I also talk about the characteristics of light energy and dark energy, or light and dark writ large, so that we can start identifying what in our lives is good for us and what might be manipulative or an illusion or just wrong. And I explain this I give a checklist of how to identify light versus dark, so that we can now go forward making decisions with full information. I also talk about what is called the light workers, basically souls who are here to bring light and love to the planet. How do you know if you are one? We don't have to wear the label, but it's useful to have a label sometimes. How to know if you are one, and to what extent you're here to do light work. And then I also talk about discernment is really important to me, how to discern messages and information, whether it's right or wrong, or to the extent to which it's right or wrong. And that's probably one of the most important things that I ever teach, is how to evaluate a spiritual message. And any message, but especially in the spiritual community, there's a lot of stuff that's pretending to be light and it's not, to pretending to be healing and good for us and it's not. It's just pretending to be, deliberately. And then also etiquette. Etiquette is really important to me and just to our world, because there are a lot of people who are doing things out of ego, but saying that they're being helpful, and it's actually causing harm. And just being respectful and having etiquette, I think, is a good human quality to cultivate. So that's level 1, which is the prerequisite for level 2, in which I go further into the world of energy, how to use it, awakening consciousness, things like that. So it's a series of courses, and they build on each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
So level 1, April 27th, 28th. People just go to your website for that,
Yes.
correct? Putthelighthere.com.
Yes.
I'll make sure I share that link. And then level 2 is a little bit later in June, 15th and 16th.
Yeah.
Perfect. In Ottawa. Perfect. So if you're listening in Ottawa, we'll share the link and you can check that out. Is there a final kind of takeaway you want people to really understand about what you do, and that like they can use moving forward, going about their lives?
The most common feedback that I hear from clients is, I feel lighter. I feel lighter. After a 15-minute appointment or a 90-minute appointment, I feel lighter, because what we've done is removed the heaviness, the energy that was weighing down our heart or somewhere in our body. And it's a fairly simple process, after being trained. It's a fairly simple process. It can happen in as little as 15 minutes. And we can do it for our own self as well. You don't necessarily need someone to heal you or to do energy work on you. I'm happy to help, though, of course. But everything is energy. We are big and powerful beings. We come straight from source, or however we want to call it. And if we'll only go within, we'll find this unlimited potential that is wondrous and peaceful.
I mean, this has been a fascinating and interesting conversation because, when you first came on, I had no idea, but you kind of get the skeptic thing going on, and you put it so eloquently and beautifully in terms that, like, again, you saw it, people listening, you could see it, that the things are going off in my head. I'm like, oh, right. So thank you for that. Very enriching for me. Where can people find you on social? They can connect with you. They can look into booking your services.
Thank you. Everything, my website is a jumping off platform for everything. So the website's putthelighthere.com. However, all of my social media is at putthelighthere. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest. I do have a YouTube channel. I don't know the address for it. It's
Put the Light Here.
Yeah. But everything is available straight from the website, Put the Light Here, which is a declaration. This is where I want the light.
Okay.
Put it here.
Do you ever write articles, share articles, or do videos on any of this type of stuff too?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. So people can go check that out. Awesome.
So I have, I do services, appointments for many things. I offer courses. I also do a weekly healing call. So this is maybe a nice thing to share for anyone if my appointments are out of the budget. I offer once a week, every Wednesday. It's a teleconference call. It's available all over the world. So all you need is a phone or an internet connection to access it. We do mindfulness meditation. I connect people with their higher selves or their soul to get messages. Then I facilitate healing on everyone who wants it. And then we do 30 minutes of Q&A. So if anyone has a question about life, then I do my best to answer it. It's $15. So that's every Wednesday. Then I have a blog. So I write articles on energy healing, wellness, like a whole bunch of stuff. I recently did my first video. So I'm kind of proud of that. And I did an energy update of January through March 2019, why people are feeling the way they are, why we had so much loss in March. There were a lot of people who transitioned out of the body in March 2019, why that happened. So I do videos. I also have a store, so I sell crystal jewelry. Okay. If anyone's interested.
So got a lot of stuff going on. That's
a lot of stuff, yes. Yeah. But full spectrum. Yeah, but it's it's fun. Well, it's fulfilling.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making the time to coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So again, Level 1, April 27th, 28th in Ottawa. You can check everything at putthelighthere.com. If you'd like to follow me, Life in Red Pod on Twitter, Life in Red Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Jen Wozny, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.